Welcome back, everybody. This is Days of Noah number 63, and this will be the second lecture where we're going to talk about CERN. Now, it's not a coincidence that this is Days of Noah number 63 because 6 and 3 are very important. As we're going to see later in the lecture, Nikola Tesla was fascinated with a concept called 369 and multiples of 3. And so it's interesting how this ended up being lecture 63, which are multiples of 3. That being said, before we get into the video symmetry, which was produced by CERN, we just need to do a quick review because there's so much information here. We have to try and put everything into context. So quickly, number one, we're talking about the world's largest machine ever created since the beginning of recorded history. A multi-billion-dollar machine. Over 85 countries on the planet have participated. So it's been a world organization, if you will. You can't just blame any one particular person. Many nations and many people have been instrumental in bringing this together. It started back in the 1950s. When they created CERN, they created a 17-mile underground tunnel. That's 575 feet in the ground. That's 175 meters deep into the belly of the earth. The Bible makes it clear that Hades or Sheol, the land of the dead, the nether region, where the demonic powers and the demonic entities come from, that they're in the earth. Keep that in mind. And so that's where CERN resides. It's underground. And its function is to deliver subatomic particles into each other so that when they crash into each other at the speed of light, that it disrupts the boundaries of space and time. It actually tears open a hole in the fabric of space and time, creating a black hole. Some people call it a wormhole, a tunnel, a doorway. There's a lot of ways to pronounce it, but at the end of the day, it defies the logic of physics. And in doing so, they are searching for something called the Higgs boson, which they also refer to as the God particle. They believe if they can figure this out, that they can figure out the origins of the universe. They're really trying to disprove that there is a personal creator, because in their minds, their religion is science. And if they can explain everything in scientific terms, then they have an understanding of how things came to be, and you don't need God anymore. So ultimately, that's what their goal is. They're not going to tell you that, but I assure you that's really one of the big goals here is in their own pride, they have this audacity to want to absolutely defy and prove and make extinct the idea of the Christian God, the Godhead of the Bible. And so they're in pursuance of this God particle because they think that can finally put an end to it all. Now, they're basically recreating, in their mind, the Big Bang Theory. They think that this is how it all started, this is how creationism began. What's interesting is we've got nuclear physicists and theoretical physicists that are saying that, hey, in doing so, you have the potential to open up a black hole that could be fatal to all of humanity. That when you open up a black hole, the gravitational pull from this thing is so powerful that not even light can escape its grasp. And so guys like Stephen Hawking have warned that you better be real careful what you're getting into because you're tinkering around with things now that are outside of your pay grade. Now it's interesting, and it's not a coincidence, that CERN is where the origins of the World Wide Web came from. The internet as we know it was birthed at CERN. Now that should be very telling to you because the internet is clearly going to be used to bring about the beast system. The Bible makes it clear there is going to be a one world system before it's all said and done. And every person on the planet, whether rich or poor, free or bond, male or female, are going to have to take the mark of the beast, which is a currency, and without that currency, they cannot buy or sell. And so we are looking for a one-world electronic digital cashless system based on the Internet of Things, where everything is hooked up to the Internet and is governed and run by the Antichrist system. We're watching that now come to fruition as the years have been moving on. Well, CERN is the one who birthed all of that possibility, because the World Wide Web comes from CERN. And if you study Gematria, which is when you look at the Jewish, when you look at Hebrew, it's an alphanumeric language, and all of the letters have numerical values. And as we looked at in the last lecture, www is Tav, which is basically a 666. And so there is some hidden symbolism there to reveal that this comes from the enemy. Now, does that mean that God can't do good things through the Internet? Of course he can. We can't put God inside of a box. He has no limitations. So yes, God uses the Internet as well. There's a lot of preaching and people who are spreading the gospel on the Internet. But make no mistake, the Internet is going to be used to enslave humanity. And the important take-home point is that it came from CERN. Now, to make matters more interesting, CERN has over 9,600 supermagnets associated with it, which makes its gravitational pull 100,000 times more powerful than the planet Earth. Now, that's pretty profound to try and think about something like that. That CERN has 100,000 times more gravitational effect on other bodies than the actual planet Earth has. And I think that's very pertinent, because we've been saying for a long time that CERN is going to be used to open the bottomless pit mentioned in Revelation 9. Well, the angel of the bottomless pit is Apollyon. And Apollyon is attached to the body, the supernatural planet of Wormwood. Some people call that Nibiru. Some people call that Planet X. And so one of the theories that we've posited is that perhaps CERN is having a gravitational effect and pull, drawing Wormwood closer and closer to us. And when the prophetic time is ready, Wormwood will begin to enter our atmosphere. We'll begin to see everything that's mentioned in the book of Revelations. The sun will turn black, the moon will turn to blood, and the stars of heaven will fall to the earth. And we'll begin to see all the supernatural earthquakes and volcano activity and all of the gravitational plates moving, and all of the end times apocalyptic events are going to be triggered. Meanwhile, we've discussed in previous lectures that all of these cosmological bodies have supernatural entities attached to them. So every planet has archons and principalities and fallen angels attached to them. And Wormwood has Apollyon attached to it. So, as you can see depicted down here in the bottom right-hand corner, Wormwood is going to be the star system that's going to eventually come into the orbit of planet Earth. It's being drawn here by the magnetization of the planet from CERN. It's just bringing it along through gravitational pull. And attached to this planetary body in the spirit realm, superimposed in the spiritual realm, is Apollyon, the destroyer. And he's looking to get his hands on the key to the bottomless pit. And when he's got that, he's going to open up the pit. He's going to let the locusts and the scorpions and all the Nephilim hybrids out. And so what we're going to try and look to do in this lecture is prove that CERN is the key to the bottomless pit. That is the key that Apollyon will use to open the pit. Now, the scientists have been saying that CERN is trying to uncover all the dark matter and the dark energy of the universe. Now, that has a lot of scientific meaning to it, but guess what? The occultists talk about that too. The Brotherhood of Saturn were also interested in dark matter and dark energy, and they were pursuing that through what they referred to as Saturn Gnosis, Saturn Yoga, and things like that. And so that's very complicated, and it has a very occult nature to it, but nonetheless, it is connected to CERN, and we're going to take a deeper look at that. Lastly, the last thing on the review is, it's not a coincidence that they chose this right here as their official symbol. The god Shiva, the Hindu god Shiva, who happens to be the destroyer of worlds, who helps birth the new age, the new eon. See, we are leaving the old age and we're moving into the new age. That's what the new world order is. We're moving into the Eon of Horus, the New Age, the Age of Aquarius, and this New Age is going to bring about the end times beast system. It's going to bring about the extraterrestrial UFO movement. It's going to bring about the last days prophetic events. Shiva represents all of that. Shiva is the god of time, of the universe. Shiva is the god of motion and movement within the universe. When Shiva's arms begin to spin in this counterclockwise or clockwise movement, he opens up a portal and it collapses time and space almost like a black hole, and it leads to the destruction of the universe, and out of the ashes of that, birth a new one. And so there's a lot of deep esoteric symbolism enshrouded in Shiva. And in the last lecture, we demonstrated how Shiva is the Lord of the dance. He does the Nataraja, the dance of destruction. And in doing so, it affects time and matter and space. Well, guess what? In this lecture, we're going to show you a video that was made by CERN where they recreate the Nataraja as they crank up CERN so that they can also bend space and time to open up a doorway to the demonic realm. And that's what we're going to look at. And so moving forward, we're going to take a look at a video produced by CERN called Symmetry. And I'm going to do my very best to get through it because there's so much levels of symbolism and meaning that I have a hard time keeping it all straight. There's just a lot there. And so we're going to pray that the Lord gives us the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of discernment, and that the Holy Spirit allows me to articulate this in a rational fashion, and that He gives you, the listeners, the spirit of discernment to be able to understand and apply this knowledge. Okay, so the film Symmetry. This is a dance and opera film that was shot inside CERN, the Large Hadron Collider. And here's the covering scene here, the opening scene. We see a circle. Now, this circle represents the circle of time. You'll see two people standing there. One is a dark person dressed in black, and the other is a lighter person dressed in white. Now, this has nothing to do with race, so for those of you who are concerned about talking about light and dark skinned people, just get over it. Okay, we're not talking about, nothing to do with racism here. They're just trying to display duality. When you understand occult cosmology, they are into duality. That's what Eastern mysticism is about. That's what the yin and the yang is about. It's the duality between dark and light, the balance between dark and light. And if you want to take it a step further, they believe that there are two suns in our solar system. There's the solar logos, that's the literal sun that's emitting rays of sunlight, that's emitting the light into the universe. And then there's the dark sun, which is the planet Saturn. And the dark sun is emitting dark energy and dark light into the universe. Now, these occultists believe that the dark light is more powerful than the real light. And so they take that left-hand path, the occult dark path. And so that's what we're dealing with here, is we're dealing with the concept of duality between these two forces of the solar logos and the black sun of Saturn. This is sort of a basis for a lot of secret societies. It's the as above, so below paradigm. Whoever controls the spirit realm can control the physical realm. This is demonstrated by characters like Baphomet, which we see up here. Now, notice that Baphomet is pointing up to the white moon, and then he's pointing down to the dark moon. See, it's this battle between the duality of dark and light, good and evil, etc. Now, the other thing that they're trying to display in this image is sort of a role reversal. And I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that. The typical role is the male, when you're dancing, the male lead and the female's in the dress, right? Well, this is the opposite. As we'll see in the video, the dark-figured person is not a man. That's a woman taking the traditional male lead. And the one that she's holding here is not a woman, it's a man taking the female lead. So we're sort of seeing this this merging of the sexes, if you will. And once again, we see that displayed in Baphomet. Baphomet is a male goat, and he has female breasts. It's this this crossing of the sexes, of the genders, etc. So it really has to do with this hybridization theme that goes all the way back to Genesis 6. That's why Baphomet has angel wings, because it has to do with the fallen angels and the mixing of the DNA. But so ultimately what we're seeing here is this duality. Now, the circle that they're standing inside of represents time. It's the circle of time. And as human beings, we don't look at time in a circular fashion. We tend to look at it more in a linear fashion. We have a past, a present, and a future. But from the spiritual realm, just take Jesus, for example. Jesus is referred to as the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And so, spiritually speaking, the beginning and the end are at the same point. And so, in the spiritual domain, it's the circle of time. It's not linear. And so that's what we're seeing here. And this all, of course, applies to CERN because, as we're going to see in the video, CERN's job is to shatter the boundaries of space and time and open up a doorway into another dimension. So that's why this circle represents time. Now, we see this being displayed in the great occultist Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant was Aleister Crowley's successor, and he wrote a famous book worth hundreds of dollars now on Amazon called Outside the Circle of Time. See, he recognizes that time is a circle of time. Interestingly enough, in the book, he encounters insectoid creatures in a higher dimension, and that'll become pertinent as we begin to look at Revelation 9 and the scorpion locusts that come through the bottomless pit when Apollyon is given the key to the pit. And then the last thing that we'll say here on this particular slide is that if you look at this from the top down, this is what you see over here to the right. You see a circle, the circle of time, with a dot in the middle. And that particular symbol has always, it's an ancient symbol that has always been a solar symbol. It's always represented the sun, going all the way back to Babylonian and Egyptian times. It's a powerful occult symbol. But really, I believe it represents the black sun. See, Saturn has a central core with a ring around it. And so we're not talking about the literal sun. This is a representation of the black sun. And that's why we see so many secret societies designed around the black sun, like the cult of the black cube. And that would make sense because Saturn is the god of space and time. If you go back many lectures ago, we look at all the image and the iconography going back thousands of years of the god Saturn. He's the Grim Reaper. He holds the hourglass. He's called Father Time. The Greeks and the Romans referred to him as the god Chronos, which means time. That's the Greek word for time. And so Saturn is the god of space and time. So it stands to reason that from an occult aspect, they would use this depiction because this represents the god Saturn, and it represents the circle of time. And they're going to get ready to shatter the boundaries of space and time by opening up the eye of Saturn. I realize that's complicated to conceptualize, but that's what it is. Now, in the Kabbalah, which is ancient mysticism, Jewish mysticism, they have many demonically inspired books from the Babylonian Talmud and the Zohar. This symbol here is represented by the Kether, which is the crown chakra above the pineal gland within the tree of life. And it's associated with the archangel Metatron. Now that's going to become pertinent as we move on, because Metatron's cube, which is the six-sided cube that makes up the Seal of Solomon, we're going to see that imagery here in the video in the next couple slides. Now, in the very opening scene, this is what we're shown. What you need to understand is that nothing is going to be in here by accident. Every single image that's displayed has an occult meaning that they're trying to reveal to humanity. And so here, what they're trying to display here is this concept of dimensionality, that CERN is going to be used to open up a higher dimension. Our world is made up of 4 dimensions: height, width, and length. That's 3-dimensional object, plus the 4th dimension of time. And so what we're seeing here is a 2-dimensional object. It has length and width, but they're able to display depth within the image. So they're taking a 2-dimensional object and they're creating a 3rd dimension of depth. That is symbolic for the fact that we're getting ready to enter into a realm of hyperdimensional physics. We're getting ready, the video, this is a suggestion that we're getting ready to enter into dimensional warping to a higher level. Then, interestingly enough, we catch a very quick snippet of this image here. If you watch the video, you've got maybe 1 second to catch this, and then it's gone. And so you begin to realize that they've embedded imagery cryptically within the video to display occult symbology. And it's very pertinent because what we see is the pyramid, or the tetrahedron, which later manifests into a cube with a 6-pointed star in it. Now that's very relevant. We'll look at that on the next slide. The other interesting thing that you'll see here is these concentric circles within concentric circles, which we'll also take a look at in a moment. So something to understand is that this image here is referred to as Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube is a 6-sided cube that basically makes up the tree of life from the Babylonian Talmud. It has the 6-pointed star inside of it, as we see in this image over here on the left, the Seal of Solomon. That's known as a hexagram. It's the most powerful image used when doing any kind of witchcraft or putting a spell or a hex on somebody. It has 6 points, 6 sides, and 6 faces, so it's a geometric and mathematical 666, which I think is obviously very relevant from a biblical perspective. And what it really represents is hyperdimensional physics. And so what we have to understand is that if you study the occult and demonology, you find that it's all based on sacred geometry. There's these sacred geometric shapes like pentagrams, the magic circle, the triangle, the 6-pointed star, the hexagram. All of these sacred geometric shapes are used along with mathematics and quantum physics to open up a portal to a higher spiritual dimension where the demons exist. This is how they communicate with the demonic realm. This is what we call magic, black magic, witchcraft. Now, magic is really just a fancy form of science involving hyperdimensional physics. When you apply all these things together, basically it helps tear a hole in the fabric of space and time and create a wormhole or a portal or an access point to a higher realm. So that's why they're showing this imagery in CERN, because that's getting ready to take place in the video. And so we start off here with this, a tetrahedron. And then later we're shown two tetrahedrons, one pointing down, one pointing up. So that's what we're dealing with here. Now, we have to look at it from a three-dimensional perspective. See, on paper, like we have here, it's just two dimensions, height and width. But in a three-dimensional realm, we're not just dealing with a triangle superimposed on another triangle. We're dealing with a pyramid that's superimposed on another pyramid, which gives us this structure right here. See the depth? So we have a three-dimensional object here, and when you add it here and you make a cube, that's where you add the fourth dimension of time, and that's what makes Metatron's cube, which we see over here. And I realize it sounds complicated, and it is complicated. When you study the occult cosmology, when you study the rituals, they're very specific. It involves mathematical equations. It involves quantum physics. These are not stupid people. Aleister Crowley was a brilliant man. Jack Parsons was a nuclear physicist. Ron Hubbard was, a captain in the Navy. These are intelligent people. H.P. Lovecraft, a very intelligent man. And so they've learned to use physics, alchemy, which is now known as chemistry, and they've learned to work all this stuff out. So we're dealing with something called Enochian magic. Now, Enochian magic goes all the way back to King Solomon. Solomon is the one who perfected the witchcraft. Solomon's the one who wrote the Lesser and Greater Keys of Solomon, which we'll look at in a moment. This is back in an era where all of the Canaanites were worshiping Saturn. We can go back in time and see the talisman of Saturn. What do you notice? It has a pentagram on one side and a hexagram on the other, with the bull and all of the zodiac. This goes all the way back to even Egyptian times. Remember, when Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt and he went on Sinai to get the Ten Commandments, they built a golden calf and they worshipped the star of Remphan. When you look that word up in the Bible, it's the star of Saturn. So these symbols go back a long way. That's why we see the bull here. That represents the golden calf in that story. So Saturn has been Saturn and all of the planets for that matter, the sun, they're all of the pagans worship the stars, the moon, the sun, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and so on and so forth. But Saturn is special. Saturn is a very special planet because Saturn has its own eye. If you've seen the previous videos, on the northern point of Saturn, we have a six-pointed hexagonal hurricane storm that moves in a counterclockwise fashion, and you can see how it makes the hexagram inside of it with the cube. This is really where the Kabbalah and the cult of the Black Cube and the secret societies come from. They focus their witchcraft on the eye of Saturn because if they can open up the eye of Saturn, it creates a dimensional black hole into the spirit realm. That's why when you study the Kabbalah, you'll find out that the tree of life and the six-pointed star has the four elements of the universe: fire, water, air, and earth. It's all based on the six-pointed star. That's why we're seeing this being displayed in the imagery of the video of CERN. And so this is all Enochian magic. It's based on the Kabbalah, which is based on Solomon's writings and teachings. It involves Metatron's cube. Now, Metatron is a very interesting character. Metatron is the name of this archangel described in the Babylonian Talmud. Now, the Babylonian Talmud is what all of the modern-day rabbis study today. They have more or less abandoned the Torah. They still look at the Torah, but they really put all their faith and trust in the Talmud. And the Talmud comes from Babylon. Babylon is a demonic, nation. We see Mystery Babylon in the book of Revelations. There's nothing good about Babylon from Genesis to Revelations. Anytime you see Babylon, It's wicked and evil in the scripture. And so it's not any wonder that the Babylonian Talmud, it's the writings of the Babylonian priests of all of the mystery schools going all the way back thousands of years. They're the one who started all the witchcraft, the sacred geometry, etc. So they teach that this Metatron is this archangel who oversees the flow of energy in everything in life. And they refer to it as this mystical cube called Metatron's cube. It represents all of geometry, all of the geometric shapes that have ever been created in the universe, all of the Platonic solids and the Platonic shapes. This is what Freemasonry is based on. The Masons had to learn how to use all of the sacred geometry to build all of the megalithic structures and all of the buildings that have the pyramidal shapes and the circular shapes, etc. So all of the secret societies are tied up in these concepts. But the Metatron is the name of this primordial angelic being in the Talmud. He's also referred to in the Zohar, and they teach that Enoch was transformed into the angel Metatron. That's why it's called Enochian magic. And they teach that Metatron is the king of the angels. They call him the prince of the world, and he's described as a messianic figure. And from my best evaluation, he is a counterfeit to Jesus Christ. They don't believe in Jesus. They deny the deity and the resurrection of Christ, but they do believe that Metatron is the God of this world. And that's what all of their mystical teachings are based on. Now, Paul and John and Jesus, they all referred to Satan as the God of this world. So I believe that Metatron is just another name or symbol for the fallen angel Lucifer, the light bearer, who is also on some levels messianic in meaning. See, there are many writings of Solomon, or at least supposedly of Solomon, that describe how to control all the evil spirits. All of the Solomonic magic, as they refer to it, that Aleister Crowley described on, like we see over here on this book, The Magic of Solomon on the left, how to invoke angels into the crystals and how to evoke spirits into the dark mirror. Notice on the front cover, you see sacred geometry. We see the six-pointed star in the middle. We see Metatron's cube. And so it's called the Magic of Solomon because it's said that Solomon is the one who learned to control the 72 demonic spirits of the pit, of the bottomless pit, of Hades, where the demons live. And there's many different names of it. They call it Goetia, a book of spells, of evil spirits, but it's always attached to Solomon, and it's always referred to as Enochian magic. Crowley invested his entire life looking at this. Crowley has many, many writings. He spent most of his life studying the magic of Solomon and Enochian magic. That's why we see the sacred geometric shapes on the front of the book. That's why CERN in the video is displaying these sacred geometric shapes. It's just witchcraft. Basically, CERN is nothing more than Enochian magic, but it's on a much higher, sophisticated level. The witchcraft of yesteryear has now been combined with technology and is basically a large, sophisticated Ouija board that's going to be used to express Enochian magic on a much higher level to communicate with the demonic realm by shattering the boundaries of space and time, creating a wormhole or a portal to the spirit realm to open it up. And specifically, it's going to be used to open up the bottomless pit that's referenced in Revelation 9, which allows the demonic manifestations to come in. See, that's why we see the next quick screen flash is right here. They've embedded this image into the video very quickly for a reason. They're showing you the concentric circles within the concentric circles. We've demonstrated many times in past lectures that that always represents opening up a portal or a doorway. We see that symbolism enshrouded in movies like The Twilight Zone, The Matrix, The Lord of the Rings. It means you're getting ready to go down a tunnel into an alternate realm. Same thing here. You can see the dimensional warping being displayed in this mathematical equation, much like you see the dimensional warping happening here when we see the opening of a black hole or a wormhole between two different dimensions. Now this is where the symbolism gets more complicated. The next thing we see is this writing here. He discovers a dance of the cosmos. And they show these 5 characters, the guy in the middle, and the others are moving around in a clockwise fashion. And down here you can see them kicking their legs and swinging their arms. What are they doing? This is the Nataraja. Remember, Shiva is the official symbol for CERN. They have a huge shrine to the Hindu god Shiva in the front of CERN. And as we looked at in the last lecture, Shiva is known as the Lord of the Dance. He does the Doomsday Dance. He is the god of the birth and destruction of worlds. And Shiva helps destroy the old world and help usher in a new world or a new age. And so that's what we're seeing being represented here. That cranking up CERN, which is what we see over here on the left, the machine, as they turn it on and as the energy is being poured into it and as they shoot the subatomic particles into each other at the speed of light to open up a wormhole, it's help ushering in a new age. And we're seeing that being demonstrated by the Lord Shiva and the Lord of the Dance. If you remember on the last video, Gil Goa, who invented trance dance, is the one who said that he goes to the large parties and he recites the holy mantra and he invites the god Shiva to come into the party, and then you begin to get the tingling sensation up your spine as the Kundalini enters into each person. And then he says everybody begins to move in unison, and then boom, all of a sudden some kind of supersonic emotion hits the whole crowd, and he says that it's like time and space stand still. That's a ritual that breaks the boundaries of space and time, that opens up a portal that lets the spirit of Shiva in. And so that's what CERN's doing on a much greater level. Now the next image we see is they display what's happening inside the portals. We see the beams of light are traveling at the speed of light, and then immediately we begin to see the dimensional warping as this guy starts to enter into an alternate dimension. And then from there we're displayed this image. Now at the beginning we had this image here. The 2 figures were inside the circle of time, but now you notice that there's a separation between the 2 of them. And we also notice that he's now dressed differently. Earlier he was all white, now he's half white, half black. And this represents this battle that they describe in occult cosmology, where you've got the solar logos, or the sun, which is portraying this centrifugal force of emitting light into the solar system, and it's being confronted with the opposite force, which is the black sun, the Lord of the Rings, Saturn, which is ejecting this dark energy and this dark force to counteract it. And so we're really getting into this notion of duality, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark force. That's why he's being displayed as the light and the dark force. And these 2 are the representation of these 2 forces of the solar logos and the black sun within the universe. Then they immediately flash to this image. The scientists are now getting ready to collide the particles into each other like we see here. They're about to smash into each other and open up a wormhole. Just like on Star Wars when they jump into light speed, in the video we see all the image of the light going very quickly. They're getting ready to break the boundaries of speed and light, and we see this wormhole opening up over here on the right. That represents the eye of Saturn. Now, if you haven't seen some of those videos, which were, quite a while back, They're pretty wild videos because they're all occult. They have all this deep symbolism, so they're hard to understand. But the best representation of it would be this book that was written here, known as The Dark Lord. This was the teachings of H.P. Lovecraft. He's the one who was describing all of his dream states, his lucid dreaming of accessing the bottomless pit, and all of the creatures that he would draw in the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead. His ideology blended together with Kenneth Grant. Now, Kenneth Grant's the one who wrote the book Outside the Circle of Time. He was the successor of Aleister Crowley. He's the one who wrote all of the Lamb meditation, where you look into the eyes of the 3-foot gray alien and you astral project into his brain and you travel along the etheric plane into alternate universes. So the front of this book, which is looking at these two occultists, is the ultimate depiction of Saturn. The occultists teach that all of the planetary bodies in our solar system have demonic fallen angelic beings attached to them in the spiritual realm. And the most powerful spiritual being is Satanus, or Saturn, or Lucifer. He's the fallen angel who controls our universe. And so this is what we're seeing. We're seeing in the middle the planet Saturn with the rings around it. And then holding Saturn is the fallen principality, Lucifer, or Saturn. He's got horns on his head. You can see right here he's got angelic wings because he's an angel. We notice that he's got a 6-pointed star, a hexagram, on his pineal gland, and being emitted out of that is this mist which travels down, and it comes down and it makes concentric circles within concentric circles right in the center of Saturn, because it's opening up the portal of the eye of Saturn. This is done through transcendental meditation, which is what we see demonstrated here. We notice that his beard makes these two serpentine-looking images. That's the Kundalini serpent spirit. That's the same thing we see on Baphomet, the two intertwined snakes. And underneath it, we see the Buddha character sitting with his cross-legged in this Buddha Indian-style position with his hands up, because he's doing transcendental meditation and he's opening himself up so that his third eye activation can allow him to astral project into the universe, into the spirit realm. And so this is what's happening on a much higher level in CERN. Now from there we see these images here. Notice that we're back to the circle of time. Now when we started, this dark cloaked person was holding this person in the center of time. But now you notice that she actually has moved out of the circle of time. That means that a doorway has been opened up. We've fractured the boundaries of space and time, and we've moved into an alternate dimension. Now, how is this achieved? And the answer is through an occult ritual. When you study the Brotherhood of Saturn and the secret societies, they refer to something called dark sex yoga or tantric yoga. Now in the West, we just call that sex magic. There's a lot of occultists who talk about sex magic. The Red Hot Chili Peppers have a movie called, or a video called Sex Magic. And so sex magic is these occult rituals that are described by the occultists. But notice that it's dark sex yoga or yoga of the dark light. What do you see this character doing here? He's doing yoga. See, it's all very shrouded, but this is representing this occult cosmology of dark yoga or yoga of the dark light, and that sex magic ritual is what's going to help open up a portal. Now you may say, well, that's a bit of a stretch there. That sounds a little thin. But take a look at the next images. We see naked people. We see a group of naked people in the shape of a circle. They're moving, in the video, they're moving in a clockwise direction. They're all in these weird poses, these yoga poses. And notice where their hands are. His hand is on her breast. This hand is on the inside of near the thigh. And so, what do you think this represents? This represents the yoga of the dark light. That's what Crowley taught, that this is how you spiritually charge the air. See the characters here, the naked characters with this light energy traveling around them? They've been spiritually charged by participating in the yoga of the dark light, which is based on sex magic and sexual mysticism and tantric Hindu practices. It's all wrapped up in sexual cosmology. They actually refer to it as Saturnian sexuality, and it's based on this instinct to unite with the opposite. It's based on dualism of light and dark, and as above, so below. And that's exactly what we're looking at in this imagery. We see this in the video that they open up a portal. It's very reminiscent of the Eye of Saturn. It has a central core right here, just like the Eye of Saturn depicts down here. And when you open up the Eye of Saturn, you're opening up a dimensional doorway to the spirit realm. And that's what Saturn is known for. That's why if you look at Saturn from a topical position, here is Saturn, the planetary body with the rings. It looks exactly like a human eye. And the eye is very interesting because human beings have 3 eyes. We have our 2 regular eyes, and then in our forehead we have the 3rd eye, the one that the Hindus put the dot on. And the Egyptians, when you study the Egyptian Book of the Dead about traveling to the netherworld, it's all about opening the 3rd eye. See the Egyptian hieroglyphics here with the eye of Horus, the sun god? When you do a cross-section of the human brain and you look at the cross-section of the thalamus and the pituitary and the pineal gland, it's where you get the eye of Horus. It's all about the spiritual domain and making a doorway between our world and their world. For example, if you go back to some of the videos on the band Coil, they were deep occultists who used to follow Aleister Crowley. They actually did their own transcontinental ritual called the Rising of the Black Sun. They actually waited until the day of the summer solstice, and then in London and San Francisco, they embarked on a very carefully planned, mathematically simulated ritual that combined music and art in an attempt to focus upon and draw upon etheric energy locked in the dark realm of the underworld. The band's lead singer said that this has to do with the blackening and purging of the soul, and that the ultimate goal was to create a gateway or a tunnel between etheric planes that could be used to enter and work with the energy of the black sun. Now, if these guys are able to open up a doorway to this energy of the black sun, then imagine what something like CERN can do. CERN is a 17-mile long circuit that's 175 meters in the belly of the earth, sitting over the ancient ruins of a Polyacum where they used to worship the god Apollo. And they're doing all kinds of quantum physics and hyperdimensional physics and magic rituals on a level that we've never seen before. Notice the image of the black sun Saturn. Here it is. If you look at Coyle's depiction of the black sun, what does it look like? It looks like a black hole. This is what the black sun represents, opening up a wormhole between our physical realm and the other physical realms. This is also what the bottomless pit looks like. A bottomless pit is a black pit that has no bottom. How could you possibly have a bottomless pit? It would have to be something like a black hole. A black hole is never ending. It just goes on and on and on to infinity. See, when you put all this in context of these deep occultists, these guys who channeled this song, Solar Lodge, it's talking about the sun, but not the real sun, the second sun that the occultists acknowledge, the black sun, the one that's emitting the dark energy. If you read the song, see the black sun rise in the solar lodge, see the black sun rise from the solar lodge, stop like a clock, like a hole in the ground. So what are they talking about? They're talking about the solar lodge of Saturn and the black sun that's rising from it. That means opening up a black hole from the eye of Saturn. And what happens when you open up the black hole from the solar lodge of Saturn? Stop like a clock. That means that time stands still. You're getting ready to break the boundaries of space and time. You're shattering time like a hole in the ground. What's a hole in the ground look like? It's a black hole. That's exactly what we're looking at here. And it's not a coincidence that when these guys write their satanic occult music, they always have to reveal or something to do with Christianity. They don't care about Buddha or Muhammad or any of the rest of them, but notice how they blaspheme Christ. Here's an image of Jesus with his hand out and this black goo coming out of it, and they talk about the Godhead equals death head. And so we see that there's clearly this satanic origin to all of this music and this occultism. Now, in the very next slide on the video, we see the clock is spinning and then it stops. That represents the moment that they open up the wormhole, they break the boundaries of space and time. It also represents 369, which is a deep occult concept that Nikola Tesla was fascinated with. Tesla said that, if you want to understand the electromagnetic engineering of the universe, then you have to understand the magnificence of 369, and that this holds the key to the universe. It's an interesting choice of words. He said that the key to the universe was based on vibration and frequencies and electromagnetism, and it's based on hyperdimensional physics and mathematics involving 3, 6, and 9. We're not going to get into that anymore in this lecture, but it's interesting that he said that this was the key to the universe, because we're seeing that being displayed in the CERN video, and it says that Apollyon will be given the key to the bottomless pit, and I believe that this is the key. CERN is the key that Apollyon uses to open up the bottomless pit. The very next image in the video shows them breaking the boundaries of space and time. We call that shattering space and time. That's why we see in the video the glass shatters everywhere and all of this energy is emitted, and we see a wormhole begin to open up. This is exactly what Einstein proved. He discovered that the scientists have finally discovered that a supermassive black hole theory is no longer theory. This is no longer science fiction. This is science fact. Look at the image in this. It's exactly what we see being displayed in the CERN video. And immediately in the video, we'll begin to see a dimensional doorway opening and entities are falling through. Here's the guy reaching out. Something's coming through. I don't know what it is. It doesn't look human to me. It's very subtle, but when you watch a video, you will see a doorway is being opened up to another dimension. Next, we see people falling through a black hole, and as the slides proceed forward, you'll see a clear image of a black hole that's created. And that's essentially what we have. We have this circular object that they fall into. This is a black hole. That's what the bottomless pit is. Notice the words symmetry. That also has deep meaning. If you look at the word symmetry, it's a Greek word, and it's a Greek word that actually is used specifically in geometry. Occultism is about sacred geometry, and it's used in quantum mechanics. How appropriate. In mathematics, it's called reflectional symmetry or mirror symmetry, which is as above, so below. That is the Hermetic maxim that they've been using since the beginning of time. Who can ever control the spirit realm can control the physical realm through the witchcraft, through the opening of the doorways, and bringing the demons and the angels in. And so mathematical symmetry just so happens that it's observed as the passing of time. And so when you look at the symbolic representation of mathematics symmetry, it's the hourglass. And we know that we've seen the hourglass before. Jack Parsons, it's right here on the front. The hourglass represents, see the planet? We've demonstrated in past lectures that Father Time, or the god of Saturnus, who Aleister Crowley makes us clear is Lucifer, Satan, the serpent, They're all the same. Horus, the Egyptian sun god, all those gods are the same thing, is represented by the Grim Reaper or Father Time or Kronos, who's holding the hourglass. And so even the title of this video, Symmetry, has deep occult meaning. See, here's the as above, so below equals the Henosis, the six-pointed star, which is made up within Metatron's cube. And so, just as a summary, when you do ceremonial magic and witchcraft using theurgy, which is based on symbols, it requires sacred geometry combined with magic rituals used to open up portals by breaking the boundaries of space and time through quantum mechanics. And this is where energy is obtained from an alternate dimension and then released into our realm to fulfill its purpose of the ritual. That energy is demonic. When we refer to something being charged, we're talking about it being demonically charged with that demonic energy from the spirit realm. This is how you put a hex on somebody, using a hexagram. All CERN is doing is a much, much, much larger ritual to open up a much larger doorway to a much larger spiritual realm, which is the bottomless pit. Here's an image of a bottomless pit. What does it look like? A black hole. Here's an image of a bottomless pit. What is it? It's a black hole, the dark sun. And when you look at some of Crowley's writings and teachings, especially those of men like Grant, who wrote the book Outside the Circle of Time, he talks about shattering the boundaries of space and time to open up an alternate dimension where the insectoid creatures come through. That's exactly what we see in Revelation 9, that Apollyon gets the key to the bottomless pit and the scorpion locust creatures come through. Now superimpose that on top of the New Age ideology, where we have people who say that they're communicating with the aliens and being abducted, having their reproductive material removed and hybridized with the extraterrestrials, and that they're telepathically communicating with them, and that their hybrid children are telling them that mankind is on the point of the brink of the end, and that they're coming back soon, and they're going to save mankind, that they're going to come down during the age of Aquarius, the golden age, and that they're going to help usher man into the fifth dimension. And this is one of the drawings of one of the girls who's having telepathic communications with her hybrid child, who's being controlled by insectoid creatures and reptilian gray beings. These are not aliens. These are fallen angels and demons from the other side, who are pulling off the greatest deception in human history, described in 2 Thessalonians 2. The one where God gives people over to the lie. He allows them to believe the delusion because they no longer wanted righteousness. Every facet of the video CERN was carefully chosen. For example, they depict a masculine-looking person dressed in black who looks like a man, but when you get close, you find out that it's really Claren McFadden, who is a woman. And Claren McFadden is an opera singer who's famous for having done a large premiere opera dedicated to Lilith. Lilith was supposedly, according to the Babylonian Talmud, and she supposedly was the first wife of Adam, and that Eve was not the first wife of Adam, and that she rebelled against Adam. And when you study Lilith closely, if you were to do a literature search on her and study her throughout all of the different apocryphal writings, she actually represents a demonic entity. She's the night demon, Lilu or Lilith, the night hag, the one who comes and terrifies men at night. She is a version of a succubus or incubus that comes to lead men into sexual immorality in their dream states. And so, they didn't just choose this woman for nothing. They chose her specifically because of some of her accolades of what she has done in her past. And so Every aspect of the video, from the music, the imagery, Shiva, the whole 9 yards, all has deep occult meaning. That's what the word occult is. It's hidden, but in plain sight. You just got to know what the symbols mean. So I think that's it for today, y'all. I mean, there's no reason to beat a dead horse. There's going to be people who are going to reject and deny all this. They're going to say it's just all a bunch of interpretation. And then there are going to be those who see the credibility in it. But at the end of the day, the movies depict it. CERN is just a Stargate. It's a Stargate. It's not a coincidence that we see the pyramid here, the Egyptian pyramid. We've entered into the Eon of Horus that Aleister Crowley described in 1904 in the Book of the Law. It's the final phase before the end, where mankind enters the age of Aquarius. Our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters are going to be coming at some point in the future to bring mankind to the next level. I don't know how this all merges together with the bottomless pit, but it's obvious that CERN is going to be used just like this picture displays. CERN's going to be used to tear a hole in the fabric of space and time. It's going to open up a dimensional doorway to the bottomless pit. It's helping draw wormwood, the comet or the planet, towards our planet now. That's what's going to help bring about the last days prophecies of the sun turning to black and the moon turning to blood and the stars falling from heaven and all the astronomical events that happen in the last days. Apollyon is attached to wormwood. He's the fallen angel who is going to be used by Satan to use technology through humanity to open up the bottomless pit. And he's going to let the entities in from the other side, and they are going to descend upon planet Earth at some point in the future. Whether the body of Christ is going to be here to witness that or not is debatable. I can't say. But, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is you put your faith and your trust in Jesus Christ. That is the gospel. The gospel is that according to the scriptures, Christ died for your sins, was raised 3 days later, was resurrected, and ascended into heaven. And it's up to you to believe and trust in his death, burial, and resurrection. If you do, then you receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. It's a free gift. You're born again. You've been adopted into the family of God, and you've been offered eternal life. And the Holy Spirit will move into your vessel with you, and he will help you sort this life out so that together you and he can walk out a purpose-driven life, and he can use you in the last days to fulfill your higher calling that he's had from you since the foundation of the earth. And so on that note, guys, Godspeed, and we'll see you on the next one.